Hello girls, it's Tuesday, and Carrie wants me to talk about City of Glass, which I will do after I talk about a few other things. First of all, sorry I have not made a video in forever. It's weird that even though I'm not doing as much work over winter break, I'm more busy. Busier. So I didn't make videos, and I didn't really have a lot to talk about anyway. Now I do. Doctor Who. I felt like the episode was kind of awful. I'm glad that all of those little storylines were technically wrapped up. Not very well, but they were wrapped up. And I obviously liked the last, 5 minutes. I hope that because all of these things that were through all of Matt Smith's era have now technically been wrapped up, that Peter Capaldi gets to start really fresh, and we get to kind of go back to series 5-ish stuff. I really think the whole episode would have been better if it was smaller. If they hadn't done this whole he's 3,000 years old now thing, if it hadn't taken thousands of years or hundreds of years or whatever. And if you were to do a completely different plot, if it had been more like the Christmas invasion and had to do more with Clara's family. And I feel like there haven't been very many Earth present day stories, I guess. At least not in the way that they used to be. And I really love doing other stuff because obviously Earth present day doesn't make a lot of sense to visit all the time, but I would have liked the whole episode to be entirely different, pretty much, except for the last 5 minutes. Sherlock, I really liked both episodes. They were both really good. I didn't feel like the fan service was a bad thing, because so I listened to the Baker Street Babes, which is a Sherlock Holmes podcast, and they were talking about the episode, and they were like, okay, but you can't really complain about fan service when the only reason Arthur Conan Doyle brought Sherlock Holmes back to life was because the fans wanted it, and also money. And see, I felt like the explanation that Sherlock gave, the third one in the episode, was how he did it. I don't know. I didn't have this whole feeling that everyone else seems to have, that it was oh, but he was lying. I guess it is kind of why would he tell Anderson? But then again, why wouldn't he tell Anderson? Just to mess with Anderson. I think that's how he did it. I don't know how else he would have done it. It made sense. The Sign of Three was a very interesting episode. It was not what I expected. I don't really know what I expected, but it was very different. And I liked it. It was kind of I was halfway through and I'm okay, so we're still doing the best man speech? Okay. It's just a little different. You want me to talk about City of Glass? I will talk about City of Glass. I was just very angry at life. The Mortal Instruments books, they're not the best books in the world, let's be honest. But they just have this effect on me, and apparently on everyone else because people read them and buy them, where I don't know what the effect is, I don't know how to describe it, but I get so mad at the characters, and I'm what are you doing? Stop that. And City of Glass is definitely my favorite of the first 3 Mortal Instruments book, and I didn't know until I had finished it. Nat told me that apparently that was where the series was originally supposed to end, which made sense because everything was kind of wrapped up. Spoiler alert for the Mortal Instruments books. I definitely liked it better than the other 2, and it surprised me more. There were a few things, Nat knows, there were a few things where I'm but this is totally obvious, why does nobody see this? But then there'd be things oh, now the city is on fire. And I'm what? It was just overall a very upsetting book. And I was there was flames on the side of my face. Thank goodness for the epilogue of City of Glass, because that saved me. I was dying, and then it was the epilogue, and I was oh, this is so nice. Everybody's happy. Jocelyn and Luke are gonna get married. That's all I care about. And it's just reading the Mortal Instruments books. It's just so awkward. It's just so awkward because they think they're siblings. before I read any of the books, I looked up online, because I was very confused by Tumblr, and I looked up and I was like, okay, they're not really siblings. Thank God. And I also looked up and knew that eventually they found her real brother. I did not know that he was gonna be evil, but I went through this whole, like, transformation with Sebastian. So at the beginning, when we first met him, it was like, oh, this guy Sebastian is just some random character, I don't care. And then when Clary met him, that's when I knew this is her brother. And that's also when I started to love him. I was like, I love Sebastian. And then those moments started to happen, and I was like, something's off about Sebastian. And then he was evil, and I hated him so much. That chapter with where they first find out that the chapter where Sebastian first reveals that he's like evil to like Clary and Jace and Alec and Simon, and that whole thing happens. That was the most stressful chapter of any book I have ever read, and I was so angry. And so the transformation continues though, because okay, I hate Sebastian, but then by the final fight scene with Jace, he has just become one of those villains that I just find delightful, and I love him again. So there we are. I mean, obviously I hate him because he's evil, but you know, I love him as a character. FSU won some big championship. Here's a video from last night, from when they won, and I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep. Do you hear it? Do you hear them? Oh my god. They're just getting louder. It's like the more school-spirited other people become, the less school-spirited I become. What are you doing? Refrigerator, you're not helping. Anyway, FSU just won some big championship thing. Look at the clock, because that's all you can see. And apparently it's a big deal. And I know that they won, because 5 minutes ago, I just heard screaming everywhere. I've been lying in bed for like half an hour. What? I don't understand why there are noises. You can't even see outside the window. This camera phone is useless. Can you see these lights? They're always there. There's nothing of interest. It's bedtime. Everybody should go to bed now, 'cause the game's over. Good night. And they didn't stop screaming. I didn't fall asleep for like 2 hours after that. But I'm trying to be school-spirited today because I don't want to seem like too horrible. I'm wearing my FSU shirt, and also, to be fair, those are technically Gryffindor socks that my aunt gave me for Christmas, but they're FSU colors and they don't even say Gryffindor on them. That is all.